Amphibian Reptile Conservation is a national wildlife charity dedicated to the conservation of two important groups of animals. These comprise the newts, frogs and toads, and the snakes and lizards. We were founded in 2009, but prior to that we came from an organisation called the Herpetological Conservation Trust, which was founded some 20 years before. We undertake a whole range of activities to conserve these species, including managing nature reserves, running national recovery programmes, running science and monitoring programmes. Our interests cover all of our native species, but they also extend into Europe and into the overseas territories as well. We're now looking to launch our new strategy, which will take us through to 2030. And this focuses on 4 different themes. One focuses on conserving our native fauna. The second one looks at improving our understanding and the science that underpins our conservation work. Thirdly, we're looking at how to provide more opportunities for people to get involved in the conservation of these species. And the fourth theme looks at the sustainability, so we can maintain our impacts into the future. One of the main ways we're taking forward nature conservation is through managing nature reserves, and we currently manage around 80 nature reserves covering around 2,000 hectares of land, mostly heathland and mostly in the southern Britain. We do have other sites around the country, and one of our themes going forward is to look how we extend the geographic range and the range of species that are covered by our nature reserve series, not only to conserve the species but also to provide demonstration sites and provide greater opportunities to engage people. We run and manage a range of recovery programme projects for a variety of species. In particular, we've focused on the rarer species in the past, with notable successes for sand lizards, for natterjacks, and for the pool frog, which has been reintroduced from having become extinct in the country. But as we look forward, we're going to more actively engage the fuller range of species, and in particular the more widespread species, which themselves are suffering serious declines. Another key area is to influence the way other people look at biodiversity conservation, not only members of the public but mainly the politicians, and this is where we have a very strong theme around advocacy, where we try to influence the way policy and legislation is developed and implemented across the country. As we see political pressures change, we do need to change the way we interact with this policy and advocacy to make sure we maintain impact as we go forwards. For effective conservation, we need a good evidence base to work for. And that means we need to understand how the species are faring, how they're changing, but also to build the evidence and understanding behind how we conserve them. And for these reasons, we're going to extend our monitoring and our science programmes going forwards. Over the years, we've established a very valuable and strong supporter base, both of members and of volunteers who've helped us take forward our mission of conserving wildlife. However, looking forwards, we're keen to not only support these people further, but also build on those numbers and have a much wider reach so we can get more people engaged in the fascinating world of amphibian and reptile conservation. As a charity, we're committed to looking after amphibians and reptiles into the future and for as long as is needed. And so we should be investing in our organisation, working in partnership to make sure that we can remain resilient, effective and relevant as we move forwards. Reptiles and amphibians are an important part of our natural history. They're deeply rooted in our culture, and yet many are under threat both nationally and internationally. Their habitats are degrading, and some are even disappearing altogether. There are many threats to these, with increasing pressures on the environment, with climate change, and increasing human demands for the natural environment. However, at the same time, we are seeing an increase in environmental awareness across society, and also a greater understanding of how the environment benefits our health and our well-being. The need for a voice for amphibians and reptile conservation has never been stronger. These animals are particularly sensitive, in part because of the low mobility makes them particularly sensitive to changes in their environment. They are particularly at risk from habitat loss and through development and agriculture, climate change and through disease. These species are very often reliant on habitats such as ponds and heathlands that can degrade without active management, but equally that can become damaged if there's too much management occurring at the same time. So that amphibians and reptiles can be conserved into the future, we need to make sure the habitats are safe, that there are bigger areas, that they're better connected, and that there's more green space for people to visit and appreciate nature. We need to make sure policies and legislation supports these animals and more people understand the needs so they can get engaged and do the right things. We've described our vision and our approach to 2030 in more detail in the strategy document we've now published and is available on our website for download.